Hi, everyone. I'm going to go over how I created this image here. And I'm going to show you the actual drawing process, but I'll show you the steps. So I'm gonna remove this for now. I'll show you where I started. This is how a lot of my work starts, which is I just get these images, I get these ideas from my imagination, and I sketch it out as best as I can. Usually pretty quickly. I want to get the essence of the idea down. And this is where it came from. So originally, I believe this guy was the first picture I created. And I just really liked the vibe of it. It was very spooky, very creepy. And then I did some other variations. I did this one here, and then I was doing a back view. And at some point in the process, I came up with the concept to create an image that went with the idea of dissociation or the pattern of leaving. When we're faced with a difficult situation in our life, one option that usually develops in childhood is that we'll dissociate. We'll find a way to pretend what's happening is not happening, and that we're energetically escaping. We're not actually facing the reality of the situation because it's too difficult, too challenging, and we don't want to look at it because it would show that we're unsafe. As a child, that would be too much to handle. So we dissociate, and then it becomes a pattern that connects with us throughout our life in different ways. So this is just another sketch. I'm not sure if I had the idea already to create a ghostly woman in this image, but it was definitely part of the initial process. So I may have drawn these first before I thought, okay, what would the woman's face look like? And I'm exploring, I'm coming up with different angles, different ideas. Composition can change, but ultimately I was thinking like a 12 by 18 size image and thinking how do I fit it in that. And so I'm using pen, I'm using pencil. I'm varying the process of my initial iterating stage. At which point I was exploring what would it look like with some color on it. So I threw it into Photoshop and I digitally painted it, just adding some color variations, thinking that this would be something I would paint. And it is nice to explore color early and to explore the mood, the feeling. Even if the whole drawing's not there, it can be a nice thing to explore early. Ultimately, I ended up going with a combination of things. I really liked the sort of glowing green idea here. And then I also went with the blue, but then I did more of a purple background, which goes well with the green, which was Nicole's idea. So she gave me that. And so I went with that. And I ended up gathering different references. So images like this one, the flowing hair, the kind of ghostly drapery. This one here, I don't know the artist, but I like that kind of ghostly feel and the glowingness. This one is a Dean Cornwell. I believe it's a Dean Cornwell. And I really like the hair and also her like expression. These kind of haunting expressions really appeal to me. I also looked at just generic lighting circumstances. Another one here, another Dean Cornwell. Just looking at the woman, what she might look like. We also have references for the hood. So I knew her face was going to be covered in a hood a little bit. And I did various studies of these images. Here's another one. This was for the eyes and that kind of vacant look. And then we have another one with a hood here that I did. So I spent some time finding references that I thought really encapsulated. Here's another one. This one perhaps not used as much, but I like this image. And so I explored different things. And then I had these different pictures of wolves that I took as screenshots from a nature documentary. And here's a bunch. I'll throw all these in at once here. So all these different images of the wolves and the shadows. I really liked how vicious they look in the shadows. So I was using all of these things as reference inspiration, including Paul Bonner, who is an incredible artist, specifically images like this, which actually photoshopped this square into the image. And I was referencing his wolves quite a bit for the wolves. And then background wise, and just the overall feeling of the imagery, I really liked, these are some photos I took in British Columbia, Canada, a long time ago, but very dusty area. And I didn't fully end up using this exactly, but I was just exploring ideas. I was thinking this would be cool. You should have background or some kind of that. And I explored different ideas for this was later, actually. Let me go. Here's the Paul Bonner image. Here is the Paul Bonner image without anything in front of it, the full picture. So let me just clear this. So the next step, I wish I had the photos of those studies I did, because I drew a lot of the references I showed you. I didn't take super long on them, but I drew them to capture the image. Here is one where I did this digital study of this painting I showed you here, just to capture the mood, the style, the lighting, the overall essence of it. So then I went into the full drawing, which I actually don't have any work in progress photos, but this is the final full drawing right here. So this is what it was before I started painting it. And you can see that I applied aspects of the hair, aspects of the different references, like this head. I was applying it to there, even though it looks different. They had studied this, and then I was bringing that knowledge, but using more intuitive feeling into the finish, as well as the wolves, having drawn and studied Paul Bonner's wolves and the different images. Like here's the silhouette, like the silhouettes of the wolves that we had here. So I was going for similar things like that. And also the hood, the kind of thing. And it gets even more like that as I go into the painting. But here's the pencil drawing. And these are some details of it. For the background, I was going off this image mostly by bringing Frazetta to create that kind of look. And I ended up, here's some just funny Photoshop explorations. I was playing around with colors and trying to get this, just exploring and thinking on the page here as well. I was originally considering doing kind of a gouache approach where I'm creating these different tiles of value, but ultimately I left that behind. But you can see in this one, actually, I have this circular background. And so there was a image here, shows it here as well. So I ended up doing these comps to get the color after they had done these ones. Right. So I explored these ideas really quickly with a sketch. Once I had the drawing, I brought it in to Photoshop and I explored doing this kind of thing, which is where I combined the green with purple but it's also, before I had finished the background fully, I was exploring what kind of background I want, right? Do I want one that's more wavy to the side like this? Do I want one that has this circular motif, but it's not as clear? Do I want the circle to be really clear in the background, or do I want messy, just a glowing look to it? So that's what I ended up exploring for colors before I started moving into the final version, which here again, this is basically the chosen small drawing now with the appropriate colors. And then I went through the process of painting it. And I did it digitally. And we can see, starting with, I believe, this one down here, you can see how I started just blocking in the shapes. I worked out the face quite a bit already. It's a little lopsided and stuff. The eyes are not quite right in the mouth and, that, but it's working. It's beginning to take shape. Then I have these wolves here. And then I don't know if this is in order exactly. This might be the next one here, where I then got more details, got clearer on the face, going for a brighter moon shape in the background, refining things more, designing elements like this hand down here, really making it look like bones and this kind of texture. Just gradually refining things, more details, more refinement up here. Getting the stars in the background, which wasn't here, but I started to put them here, and then that's about all the stars there, and then just continued refining. A little closer to the finish, and then ultimately we got the finished drawing, which you saw at the beginning, or the finished painting. Yeah, that is the process on this one. Is there anything else to say about it? I think not. I had a lot of fun with this. I enjoyed the drawing process. Definitely benefit to this process of doing it in these steps where, first of all, you have an idea. You have a imagination idea comes from somewhere. Then you build an image out of it. You expand it a little more. At which point you can either go into a full drawing of it, or if you know how to paint it, you can also explore color with that. So you can either go here and explore the color with that, or you can go into doing a full drawing, detailed render, or however you want to finish it. Once you have the drawing, you have the option of painting, which in case you can combine your color studies, your approach to color, to then apply it with your drawing. And at that point, you can lead yourself to a finish. But there's one important step in here, which is I missed between the initial idea and the drawing. This is where you gather your reference and you do the different studies. You can also start the drawing, and if you're running into a difficulty, then you go back to the reference and you start to selectively bring in things that, I need to know how to make this face better. I'm started the drawing process of doing this finish, and the face isn't working out, so I'm going to go study and I'll revisit the face, right? So these two phases are a bit interchangeable, but it can also be useful to just do a whole bunch of studies before you even approach your final drawing, because then packing your toolkit, you're geared up, you've got all this knowledge, visual knowledge, ready at the disposal to bring into your final work. So that is what I have to say about this, and I hope you enjoyed this process. I'll delete this one. And that is the approach to this piece. There's different ways to approach different pieces, but ultimately what you want is the result, and what you want is a flow, a creative flow process, understanding of what you need to make it happen. So again, I hope you enjoyed this, and please feel free to let me know if you have any questions about this at all, and I'll gladly go into more details. Thanks for watching.